Written and directed by Oscar-nominated director Ashvin Kumar's forthcoming film No Fathers in Kashmir promises to be a poignant tale which has Soni Razdan in it playing an important character in an important role. Joining me now, Ashvin Kumar and Soni Razdan. Thanks a lot for joining latestly.com.
Thank you, thank you.
My first question is, it's quite an irony. While your film is about a love story set in Kashmir, such is the political climate in the valley as well as in the country, that love is the last word that is associated with Kashmir. Your comments on the same?
That's a very powerful statement. And it's unfortunately very tragically true, because we associate Kashmir with militancy and terrorists and bombs and by default then hatred. But I think this is a film that actually shows you another side of Kashmir. And while we have set many love stories in Kashmir, but Kashmir has always been a backdrop. We never actually gone into a small town in the valley and sort of become acquainted with the people that live in those houses there, particularly in a time like today's. So I think it's actually, from that perspective, a really unique story. And at the same time, you do have this really, really charming, very tender, very sort of beautiful, sensitive love story that's playing out at the same time. So, it's got so many, well, Kashmir is so complex, and this film is also very complex, but at the end of the day, it is an entertainer. And I mean, what attracted me to the script was the fact that when I read it, I was laughing, I was intrigued, I was crying, I was finding the ironies in it, and I was finding it to be very, 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 it's a humorous film. So it's got so many, it's got so much going for it. I thought it was a very clever script, to be honest with you. Yeah.
Humor is the element she is talking about. That was nowhere to be seen in the trailer, though.
No. But why show everything at one time?
Correct.
Right? It's like peeling the layers of an onion. And it's very much like the way people perceive Kashmir. You know, there's something you hear about, then when you go there, you see something, and then when you get to know it a little better, something completely different emerges. And that's how it emerges. So, and I mean, the function of a trailer is to do a certain thing, and it does it. That's why you're sitting here. That's why we are sitting here. But what Soni has said actually is absolutely true. The film disarms you, it charms you, it is irreverent, it is about the youth, it is about the sort of the swagger and audaciousness of being young and youthful and hopeful, and that's the sort of power that it has actually, because the more you think about the innocence of these two kids, the greater the tragedy of the valley that unfolds in its backdrop. And by the way, it is in the backdrop that comes out. I mean, and there's always a great, I mean, you know, we all bunk school, you know, we bunk colleges, you know, I hope people will be bunking schools and colleges and go and see our matinee shows, because we are doing a lot of matinee shows, so go and see it, you know, at the 12 o'clock show. And it's about that sort of moment where you are becoming an adult and you want to, like, push the boundaries, you know, you want to step over that line, you know, you've been told that line, you don't step over this, but you want to do that. But the tragic part, of course, is that in Kashmir, when you step over that line, you run into a Fauji, you know, and then things unravel.
There is a visual in the trailer where a man's bare back is shown, and there are welts, there are marks on his back. So to speak about the subtext one can draw from that visual is that apart from the physicality of it, the collective consciousness of Kashmir, the populi, they have those injuries on their collective consciousness, so to speak. So do they come from our inability to find solution in that region, or those are self-inflicted injuries that have happened because they want freedom and not a solution?
No. I think what you said is very valid, yeah, it begs the question that how much of the responsibility should go on to a Kashmiri population as well, because they always say it takes two hands to clap. But I think that is looking at it from a superficial point of view. So when you understand the whole story is when you understand where it started. And at that point, I don't think you would ever think, yeah, there have been, because of geographically Kashmir is in a vulnerable position. So therefore, it's been open to a lot of you could say, invasions and influences from other parts.
And therefore interpretations?
And therefore?
Various interpretations?
Interpretations, no, I'm saying because of what's happened in the past. Like, when the Kashmiri Pandits were thrown out of the valley, for example. Why that happened? It wasn't because the indigenous population wanted them gone. It was because of some other influences which came in and then started influencing people. And, so it's all a bit of a mess. But having said that, having done that and having that, and that time having gone by, what's happened post that is really what I think we are addressing in this film, and also what we need to address in the valley today with our in the discourse that we have with the people from Kashmir. It's very important that we understand what they've gone through and acknowledge what they've gone through, because until and unless we do that, nothing's going to change, because they actually feel it's like they've gone through so much, but you say no, nothing happened. How would that make you feel? It's not possible.
Correct.
And the physical marks on a man's body bear testimony to the fact that there's something much more than it's much more than just a physical lash.
What appears on the surface.
Yeah, there's something more to it that meets the eye.
It actually,
did I make any sense?
You did, absolutely. Yeah, those lashes are on my body actually, and it's my character that is playing that role. And it's very interesting because it gives you a very clear context as to why he is the way he is. Of course, I don't play the most happy character in the film. The details, of course, you'll find out when you watch it. But he is bit of a edgy character. But the reasons for his edginess are perhaps defined in that one shot. Is that once somebody has been through that kind of torture, once someone's been through that kind of horror, no matter what his crime. Which we're not getting into, whether it's a crime or whether it's the struggle for self-determination, etc., etc. I don't want to get into that polemic. But whatever it is, we're talking about humanity. We're talking about trying to understand the reasons why people make certain choices because they're given certain circumstances. Now, your choices are limited to the circumstances that you come out of. And that's what the film tries to do.
One last question and you may leave. You have said in an interview that Kashmir is in your blood, though you do not know the language, and by default you are a Kashmiri. But tell me, where does your impression of the place come from? Does it come from the mainstream media discourse, or do you have lineages and links there from which you get influenced?
Yeah. No, I have no link there directly, but indirectly my whole family is Kashmiri. So I have a huge family. So therefore, we have this connection. Just because you're not living in a place doesn't mean you don't get connected to it.
True.
So we have this connection again, as I said, by default. But physically it's there because my family exists, right? It's not just me on my own. It's a huge Kashmiri family.
So while doing
of
the
which
film,
I'm a part of.
So while doing the film, because of the research it required,
yes,
does your perception of the place change?
No, yes, definitely. But the thing is that I was already very curious about Kashmir before I read the script. It's like not that I didn't have a curiosity. So I've been reading up on Kashmir for years and years and years. But the understanding that Ashwin's script gave me was different, because Ashwin's script comes from a place, from a person who has travelled into the heart of the land.
Correct.
And not most journalists haven't done that, or most writers haven't done that. So you'll read an account by an army officer, or you'll read an account by by somebody who's left the valley and gone away because of they had to go away or whatever. But to read something from a perspective such as Ashwin's was completely fresh to me, and that was why it was so attractive and so and again so charming also, because and so interesting, because it had all those different little
layers.
Layers and layers and layers and layers, and different characters, and such interesting characters, which you won't normally come across when you're just looking at the news or reading the newspaper or stuff like that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.